To my family, friends, supporters, and colleagues, I want to speak to you directly and from the heart. This is a shakedown. I'm going to be open, transparent, and defend myself because this isn't right. This is all being orchestrated by Tony Busby, who has targeted Jay-Z. Tony Busby targets black men, and I believe he's going to release a 30-second clip of a sex tape that tries to make me look guilty and play into every stereotype you could possibly imagine. That video should actually be 10 minutes or so. Hey, Tony, instead of releasing your edit, put the whole video out. I don't have it, or I would myself. You know what happened, and you're trying to manipulate the media. The entire question took place during the day. Good afternoon. How we feeling? Good morning, wherever you're at. But here is actually good afternoon. Yeah. So, really quick, just want to hop into it. Shannon Sharpe, a couple things we want to talk about with the situation. So if you don't know, I just played that little clip. He did that off of his Instagram Live, I believe. But the backstory is that he was at a gym and he was working out. And so he sees, a young lady he found attractive. The only issue is that at the time, I think it was back in 2023, he was 54, she was 19, right? So she's of legal age, not of legal drinking age at the time, but she's of legal age, right? So, and she could have been 20, so 19 or 20. But the deal is that she's still well younger than he is. Now, is there a lot of attractive women out there much younger? Of course. There are always going to be more attractive people, especially women out there, because, well, first of all, it's more women, right? But here's the deal. Let's look at it, because before we say anything bad, what I want to say about Shannon is that he is, if you don't know, 3-time Super Bowl champion, 2 times with the Denver Broncos, 1 time with the Baltimore Ravens. Unbelievable wide receiver, kind of changed the game, actually a tight end, but changed the game. But that's not what we're here to talk about. But still want to give respect to him for what he's done in his career. But when we look at it from several different points, one point is that when he met her, he was over 30 years older than she was. All right. That's always going to be an issue. Now, culturally, in some different cultures, because I know the first thing some people may say, and I've seen this before, people say something about, Bill Belichick and the situation he had as far as with his situation, like he's 70 plus 72. I don't want to get his age wrong. And he's dating a 24-year-old right now, right? Which I think is kind of crazy too. But hey, once again, both legal. They're both consensual adults, right? Consenting adults. Culturally, a lot of us know that there is a difference. In Black culture, a lot of times that is looked down upon as far as dealing with a woman that much younger. And a lot of times the first thought that comes to mind, especially for most of my fathers out there, is saying, yo, I wish my daughter, one of my daughters, would bring home somebody that's likely older than me, if those ages are right? And considering if her father's in her life. Like, dog, what are you doing with my daughter? And it does. It also, we saw it last year or year before last with Russell Simmons, one of his daughters, and she was dating a guy, he was uber rich. So she was dating a guy that was, I don't know, maybe even 40, 50 years older than her. Who knows? But once again, culturally it's different. He was a white man, same as Bill Belichick. Tackling that first. There are going to be issues when it appears, regardless as to how rich you are, how powerful you are, there are going to be these societal views. I think Shannon Sharpe is 6'2", 6'3", larger Black man with a smaller white woman. Because initially I didn't know whether she was white or not. I know Dr. Umar Johnson, shout out to Dr. Umar, also here from Philly, always talks about not dealing with the snow bunny, right? So, and he's always accused Shannon Sharpe of doing that. Now, the 3 kids that I've seen who all appear to be older than this young lady,
she actually, I think is a little younger than all three of his kids, but all three of his children look like they're from traditionally black, women, or as Tariq Nasheed would say, FBA's foundational Black American women. All of his kids appear to be like that, right? And not of mixed race. So, as far as this, there's been a long line of people accusing Shannon Sharpe of being, a guy that only dates primarily white women. But I don't think anybody thought that it would be this young of a white woman, right? And that's the second point that I want to get into, is because I remember I used to say to guys, because I had kids late in life, right? But I remember I used to say to friends, well, like sometimes, you go through, these relationship issues and everything like that. But you know what? I would expect that. And I'd say, you know what? I'd understand that if I was dating somebody, like let's just say when I was like how I'm 50 now, right? I'm 50 dating somebody who's 25, even maybe 30. Like I'm expecting some of these, I don't even know if you want to call it immature, but just whatever stage of the maturation process that person is at, because I've already lived that life and I'm 25 years past that, right? So you could just imagine if Shannon was 54 at the time and the young lady was 19 or 20, he has 34 years of experience over her, and on top of that he's successful, so he probably likes things done a certain way, his way, a meticulous way, because I know that's what got him in the Hall of Fame, got him 3 Super Bowls. Routine. Being regimented, being disciplined. You even still see him now as a 56-year-old guy being in top tier shape, right? Doing certain things a certain way. And he doesn't even curse from what I've seen, as far as, his Club Shay Shay, or what's the other one? Nightcap, right? With Ocho Cinco, right? So the reason why, as opposed to the race issue, this is the bigger component for me, is because as men, we all know you get yourself, first of all, with a woman who was acting a little crazy or crazier after some women say you drove me crazy, right? You will start to see a difference in behavior, right? And this is maybe at women, even at the age you're at or close to the age you're at, right? Just imagine dating a woman who's not even legal to drink yet, right? Because like your eyes tell you optically, they say, oh man, she's good looking. But then when she starts to speak, the way she starts to act, certain things she starts to do, certain things that you've seen that she may not have been exposed to or experienced, and you're like, wow, you know what? This is almost like really like dating not a kid, but like a teenager. And that actually she was, but even if she was 20, like dating somebody that doesn't have all of their wits about them. They're not fully developed mentally. They're not fully developed emotionally. So there is no way, you even, and I'll even throw them a bone. I say, look, all right, okay, you just want to hit, you just want to knock off. All right, well, cool. You know what I'm saying? And that may just be about it. But to go on and carry on, because of course, nobody but them knows the significance or length of the relationship. But allegedly, she got upset when she heard the call that he made, I think last year. I don't know if it was September, October, when he got caught with the other woman on Instagram Live. So, and we're not going to go through all of the crazy text because it's all out there now. Just wanted to give kind of my take on it. But there are all kinds of crazy texts to me that show the immaturity level of this young lady. Stuff like, I've always wanted a black baby, a big black baby, or, I want you to tie me up and do stuff like that. Now, if there's somebody near or close to your age, I wouldn't even think of that as that crazy. But when you start looking at that, when the person is that young, you start to say to yourself, well, wait a doggone minute. Wait a minute. She talking kind of crazy. Then something else about, you love this big, fat, juicy ass. And so one butt cheek, 2 butt cheeks, $25,000 a butt cheek, whatever. Once again, just very, very immature talk on her behalf. right? And the thing is that we all know now with text messaging, and that's the thing, as meticulous as he is, and as good as he is as far as seeming regimented and having things together, to make these kinds of errors. And I get it. People start dealing with each other. You're messing around and all that. But when these types of issues start to happen, you start to wonder, well, like, I know you're busy and all that, brother, but like, what in the world is going on? Then I find out that she is also on OnlyFans. So once again, not getting in his pockets, but Shannon's obviously a millionaire, or he's well off, right, financially. So those aren't like his major concerns. For him to be a single man, he should be. There should be plenty of options for him, plenty of options, because the way they make it sound was that, or she makes it sound allegedly, he was pursuant of her in the gym. He was overly pursuing her in the gym, right? And we've seen that happen before. You know how you go to the gym, you see somebody that looks good, and you kind of don't want to act like a creep, but I'm sure the type of gym that he probably goes to is probably an elite level gym where the dues to pay to get in there are probably inordinate, and they're probably it's probably more of a private gym. So if she's in there, obviously she's probably paying a grip to be in the gym also, but even if it were a public gym or more public gym like an LA Fitness, the whole point is that you go in there, you kind of just don't want to be like a creep, right? So you look at it and you say, she's 19, 20 years old. I'm 50 something years old. I got money. It's a lot of different things that I can do. I don't even have to really get involved in this. But, as a guy, sometimes, certain things start taking over your visuals. We're voyeuristic. So those things start to take over. You say, hey, look, you know what? I want that. I want that. But then you find out that she's on OnlyFans. And I'm hoping that Shannon didn't know this prior to, but even if still, you find out she's on OnlyFans, because he's actually in that statement that he gave, he actually talked about her being on OnlyFans, and he shouted out her handle on Instagram and everything like that. But it's like, an OnlyFans model and that old? Come on, brother. Come on, we all make mistakes, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to give him some leeway here, because we all make mistakes. And you mean me? Honestly, I don't feel like he's guilty. I don't think that he meant any malice towards her, as far as anything that's over the top, as far as him trying to hurt her. But one thing that he did do that made it seem bad, although sometimes settling is not an admission to guilt. But as we've even seen with Diddy, it does lend to maybe there's something else down the pike that they don't want us to see, to destroy their reputation any further. But the issue is with this is that allegedly one of his lawyers said that he was going to offer up to $10 million to the young lady, because he's about to sign $100 million podcast deal, or $100+ million podcast deal. Well, anyway, crazy situation. Just found out a few hours ago. They said they reported it on ESPN, not ESPN. They reported it on one of the networks that he's not going to be. He actually, I think he put out a statement saying that he's not going to be on ESPN until preseason, and preseason doesn't start until around July or August. So he's saying that he's taking a hiatus to do stuff with his family. I don't know if that's the case with Club Shay Shay and his other platform networks, shows. But even now, some of the stuff, because you know how the internet is undefeated. So even now, what's going on is that they're starting to show certain clips. Like even I saw the interview that he did with Monique. And Monique was saying, you know what, you need to take your old ass and go sit down and find yourself a real woman that's going to do such and such and such and such and such and such, right? And he just laughed it off and played around and everything like that, And I know he's thinking to himself, "Dag, I can't win. She want me to date somebody older. This young girl she trying to take me for all my money and my credibility and take down my reputation. And then on the other hand, you got other people calling me gay, right? So who knew that once he got into this space, especially once he did that Cat Williams interview, and kind of took over the YouTube space, that all of this, even though it was great exposure for him and blew him up and basically has given him a third career because as a broadcaster or network person, he has had a great career doing that also, right? But I know he's like, wow, all of this has happened, and now I have to deal with all of this extra stuff. But it's just like I've talked before. Us guys, we have to, especially once we get past a certain age. Like I said, you start getting to that 40 range, a little older. Sometimes, depending on if you're rich and famous, a little younger. We have to have the discipline. When you're walking around here, and that's why. And check it out too. I made 150 and unmarried. That's why when you're walking around here unmarried at these big ages, you don't really have any cover. You don't have anything to lean on to say, hey, look, this is my wife, and because you have your wife, hopefully you kind of regulate your life a little differently. Not saying that married men won't cheat, but the thing is that there will be a lot more tact into what goes on and how you are deciding to for lack of better words, cheat on your wife, right? As opposed to just being this guy that seems single, just running around doing whatever. And even to go back to Bill Belichick, right? One thing about Bill Belichick is that, even with him, he still at least parades the young lady around. And she's the only one. So if something did happen, people would say, you know what? We've seen them together, such. All right, well, it seems a little more believable that Bill didn't do it because they actually had an ongoing, outwardly public relationship. Whereas Shannon, it would appear that from the outside, and that's not saying that's how it is. You met a girl when she was 19 to 20 years old. She's 30 plus years younger than you. She's on OnlyFans, on her Instagram. She has her buns out everywhere, right? So you obviously see where this could have gone. And like I said, let's not overlook the racial part to it because a lot of times, let's face it. I mean, you don't have a lot of black women pressing charges and doing stuff like this, right? Not to throw shade on anybody else, but typically this is not what you see. You do not see a lot of times black women going and doing this kind of thing where it's looked at to me almost borderline extortion, right? Definitely shakedown kind of stuff. All right. But hey, listen, I've rambled on long enough. You tell me what you think. Put a comment in there. Make sure you like, subscribe, or do something. We got to get things popping more here. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you do that. And hey, Shannon, we'll see what happens. But check this. Until next time, live life. Don't let life live you.